Thank you, Raj. Very interesting. Now, in my early career, we spent a lot of time at conferences like this talking about what was called sick building syndrome, a lot of which was really called what I used to call crazy architect and poor facilities management syndrome. Fortunately, that conversation has changed in recent years to focus on wellness in buildings and how we both create and maintain them. Certification standards can be a great help in this, and here to talk about that is EMEA Senior Vice President of the International Well Building Institute. Your attention, please, for Anne-Marie Aguilar.
Thank you, Martin, for that kind introduction. It's great to be with you all here to talk about returning to the workplace with the focus on the value of certification programs. So let's jump right into it. I'm going to talk today a little bit about the Well Building Standard and its most current version, which is version 2, which was released last July. And I guess a little bit of history about the Well Building Standard, just to give you an idea of where we've come from. We launched back in 2014 with our first standard, which was really on the back end of around 7 to 8 years of medical research, the first time that we actually started asking questions of the medical profession. What's the impact of the human body to be inside buildings? We then quickly expanded in 2017 to talk about well at a community level scale. In 2019, we released something called Well Portfolio, which looks at the entire portfolio of multiple assets for a single client. And very recently, between 2020 and 2021, we talked about the pandemic and the impact this is having on the built environment. And we released the Well Health Safety Rating. And most currently, we've released Well version 2, which we'll talk about in a little bit more detail. So for anyone who's not really familiar with Well, it's based on these 10 strong concepts, which are really critical to designing a healthy building. And for most built environment specialists, you'll recognize certain concepts such as air, water, light, even sound and materials and thermal comfort. But what we're really talking about here now is the impact that the built environment has on human health. So we're really adding some new topics here. So we're going to be looking at the impact of food and nourishment, the impact of light on our human health, what's it like to move inside buildings, and really two very important concepts that are rarely talked about in the built environment is the impact of mental health and your mind and the sense of community inside the buildings that we design. What I also find really incredible about the opportunity we have at Well is our spheres of influence. So again, the human person is at the center of the design standard and everything that we do. And we can have tools that help us design the space that people work in, the entire building that they operate in, as well as organizational impacts, community level impacts, and society impacts. What we find very unique about the opportunity to use certification tools is that it can be used across all types of building projects. So we're no longer thinking healthy buildings only are determined for the corporate office space. We're looking at hotels, we're looking at industrial buildings, we're looking at schools. Every building that humans spend their time in is an opportunity for a healthy building. And one of the hallmarks of certification systems, and especially the Well Building Standard, which I really want to focus on today, is verified performance. And as we come out of this COVID-19 crisis, the most important thing that we can talk about today is on-site testing, performance review, equaling out performance verification. And everything that we do at Well delivers an on-site assessment that guarantees that you've been delivering a space that meets our serious criteria for air, water, acoustics, and lighting. And I love putting this slide up because it's always a shock when people see this, that actually the smallest determinant of the future of your health is actually tied to your DNA and your genes. The largest impact that we have is the physical and social environment we spend our time in and our behavioral habits around health. So when you think that your family has destined you with high blood pressure or diabetes, you have an opportunity to really change those by really looking at the environment that you find yourself in. I really feel proud that in 2020, the IWBI pulled over 600 professionals together to help us understand how we can really tackle the impact of a pandemic and how the built environment can respond to those changes. So we've really spent the last year really understanding through talking to real estate developers, medical professionals, virologists to really understand how can we improve the well building standard and how can we continue to advise our community on the value of real estate when it comes to our health. So let's dive into a little bit of detail here on the value of certification programs and why they're more important today than ever. One of the reasons that I think we've found ourselves in a position where we're looking at certification ratings to give us that level of confidence is because we know that they're grounded in a body of research. This is not about someone telling you that they feel this is the right decision. It's about the research that has happened between business, human, and built environment research that gives you the tools, the sort of roadmap to deliver incremental change into a building that you can measure outcomes. And we're going to talk in a little bit of time about some case studies, because the one way and the one vehicle that we can see progress through is the outcome of a successful built environment project and to understand the impact it's had on the humans that actually occupy these buildings. And the other area that I think is really critical when we're talking about the value of certification programs, and I love this slide because it really pulls together what I think are three very disparate groups that work within real estate. So when we look at the fact that well is a combination of features across those 10 concepts, what's really valuable is those features are identified either through a policy change or policy deliverable, design enhancements, and operations. So for the first time, you're bringing together the HR team who typically sits in policy world. You're bringing together the corporate real estate, the architecture, the engineering that sits in design, and you're tying that together with the facilities management and the corporate real estate folks who operate these buildings. So this is actually the first time we're bringing groups together that operate in their own silos, and well, as a certification tool, is used to bring those individuals together to work with the same agenda. So let's go through a little bit of detail on some projects, and we can really see the outcome here of why these programs have been helpful. So Arup Boston is a project in North America that had some really important goals attached to it. And what we'll always see here, again, when you look at these case studies, is this alignment or collision of sustainability goals and health goals. So here, this project wanted a more energy efficient office. They really wanted to support the employee when it comes to nutrition. And this is a really unique opportunity here. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And how do you build out a space that makes staff happier? So let's take a look. So one of the key criteria that we look at is the impact of lighting. Lighting has an incredible impact on your sleep-wake cycle. It helps you manage your time, and that really comes back to us in areas like natural daylight or circadian lighting systems. And what we'll find is that when people have normal circadian lighting and have normal circadian rhythms, what's happening is you've got a cycle of sleep and wake that works for staff, which means that they're happier and they're healthier. The second area that they thought was really critical, and I love the fact that they've integrated food and kitchen and preparation into the middle of the building, which allows staff to come together, to eat together, to chat, to leave their desk instead of buying takeaway and sitting at the front of their desk. This has created a space where people can come together and eat healthy food. The third area is adaptable spaces. And this goes back to one of our real strong program changes around movement and about really inhibiting spaces to be adaptable, so that if you wanted to have a yoga class or a meditation space, you've got spaces within your building that can accommodate these types of really interesting opportunities for staff to join into. And here's some of the outcome. You know, lighting itself has been a massive improvement. It gives the office a completely different feel. The results, you know, again, the value of a certification system means that you've got a journey that at the end you can go back and look at what you've designed, and you can start to understand the positive impact. These folks have seen more productivity. The kitchen allows for greater gatherings, and energy has been enthusiastic due to the light system. So we can see real change and real progress here. There's more collaboration, better acoustics. We're starting to measure these types of outputs. So what we're seeing is an ROI, a return on investment based on the changes that we've designed for. We've got fewer sick days. Look, there's your most valuable return on investment. If employees are less sick in your building, that's the value of a certification program right there. 42% of their employees are saying that the lighting has improved their sleep. So what we're starting to see in this world of certification and post-occupancy evaluation is that we've got data. We can start to show that healthy buildings have a more attractive leasing rate. They have a more positive impact on the building value and the occupants that sit inside. So let's look quickly at another case study. This is Landsec, which is a very large developer here in London. They, again, you'll see a very strong association with both health and well-being, as well as sustainability. So we've got a BREEAM outstanding outcome, as well as a WELL outcome. Here are their goals. They want better lighting. They want better indoor air quality. And who today is not looking at indoor air quality as we come out of a pandemic? They wanted to understand where their materials were coming from and how they can increase the layout to, you know, to really help their employees be more collaborative. What did they get? 90% of the employees say that the environment has created a more positive outlook. 88% that's increased productivity, and 40% are increased with air quality levels. This was before the COVID pandemic. I can only imagine that the increase in awareness that we have on air quality will only be extended. And we see another 25% increase on lighting levels. One of the tools that has been really positive in helping combine the data from these surveys is something called the Leesman survey. And I know that Tim is going to be speaking at the conference. So I'm really happy that he'll be talking about the benefits of the post-occupancy evaluation, which is really where we get the data and the value of how these buildings are actually operating post-certification. And you can see here, the results are showing that this building has a 44% increase in overall pre-occupancy scores, and productivity has increased by 20%. Let's go somewhere else now. This is a project in Asia, which is the Hayworth Furniture Showroom. This was one of our first WELL projects all the way back in 2016. And I want to show you this project because I think it's got real value when it comes to material selection. Again, their goal coming from a central Hong Kong city in the middle of Asia was around air quality. The second concern is ergonomic posturing, which is, you know, really an issue when you're sitting for a very long period of time. And how do we improve mental health and reduce stress? Let's take a look. I mean, ergonomically, both visually and physical, they have managed to identify appropriate furniture that works for our body. And we've got, you know, the number one cause of issues at work is musculoskeletal issues. So this is a project that directly tries to show the importance of appropriate furniture. We also can see here that air ventilation has been a key priority. So they're looking at air filtration that takes care of PM 2.5, volatile organic compounds, and they selected material that has low VOC. And take a look at the, you know, just the views and the biophilia and the natural material. Like these are all the types of material selection that helps us create environments that reduce stress. You can start to see here the reactions of the folks that come into these buildings. You know, it's about being more creative. These spaces positively impact our mental health. So it's really exciting to see that we've got real data that's coming from the projects that we've seen. So just a quick recap on where we are as a movement. We are in countries, and that's really delivered to us by over 18,000 WELL APs that really support our mission. So let's talk a bit about where the WELL movement is today. Believe it or not, we've gotten to 2.6 billion square feet in the last 6 years, and 50% of that has been in the last year. So we can really start to understand the impact that COVID-19 has had on the certification movement in general. The need for this sort of performance verification data has been really critical for our community. I also feel really proud that we have close to 20,000 WELL APs around the world that support us and help us deliver this mission locally. We've got 3 major tools that people are using at the moment for WELL. We've got our newest tool, which is called the WELL Health Safety Rating, which is about getting people back into the buildings that they love. We've got WELL certification, which we were just talking through. And then we've got our final program, which is called WELL Portfolio, which is where we look at multiple assets across a specific organization. And I just wanted to spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about why this health safety rating has been so critical for us as we try and get buildings and spaces back open. We looked at one of our most important landmarks in New York, the Empire State Building, as one of our first WELL Health Safety Rating buildings, which was part of a large 14 asset portfolio in New York, which really tried to set the way for what we're trying to do here, which is to give people the confidence that these buildings have been really addressing the post-COVID-19 critical ideas. And we'll go into a little bit of detail about that now. So what's really fabulous about this program is that it's got a QR code, it's got a seal on the front of the building, which gives you real insight into what this building has done to make sure that it's healthy and safe for you to return. And a lot of these items, which we'll go into in a second, are invisible. So it's very hard to understand how well a building has prepared for us to come back. So what the health safety rating delivers is 4 really strong areas: operational policies around the safety of the facility, maintenance protocols. So what did we do with the air and the water and the ventilation systems? Emergency plans. What did we not have ready when March rolled around and everyone had to leave the building? These are giving you then the templates to help set up for emergency recovery, disaster recovery plans, business continuity plans. And the last and most important area is really stakeholder education and engagement. How do you explain to the folks who are coming back to the buildings what you've done? So what makes this stand out is, again, similar to WELL certification. It's informed by research. It's powered by the experts. So all the folks that got together for the COVID-19 task force have helped us highlight these key criteria for reopening buildings. And like most certification standards, the value that you get is it's validated by a third party. Can be used across any building type, which has been really successful for stadiums around the world, schools willing to reopen, hotels, movie theaters, and corporate offices. And we have a very strong campaign that allows people to recognize this seal where they're going. We've been also very excited to see governments start to really look at WELL certification as a minimum compliance standard. So we've been really excited to recently certify the Prime Minister's office in the UAE. We also look at multiple government organizations that are also capturing the dedication to this program to help really set this benchmark that we're looking at a new level of certification that demands higher performance verification and higher deliverables. Just wanted to finish this last slide with just some images of what healthy, WELL buildings look like. And they're beautiful. They come with natural material. They have a lot of natural daylight. They incorporate sports and movement, daylight, social activities. And that is really what's going to get people back to the office. So thank you very much. I know we're going to have time for questions later, so I appreciate your time and I wish you all to be safe and well. Thank you.